60%. That is exactly how much of America's imported crude oil comes from one single country. It is not in the Middle East. It is right across the northern border. 1.4 billion barrels a year. Add to that billions in electricity, raw uranium, and critical minerals. These resources hold up the entire U.S. defense sector. Right now, Washington is throwing around the threat of a 25% tariff. The White House acts like it holds all the cards. But in Ottawa, Prime Minister Mark Carney is incredibly calm. Why? Because while Washington yells about tariffs, Canada is quietly holding the ultimate economic leverage. And this is where things get serious. This is the ultimate geopolitical bypass. To understand the real power dynamic, look at the hard numbers. The United States consumes massive amounts of energy. Canada supplies over 4 million barrels of oil to the U.S. every single day. That flow feeds the most critical refineries in the Midwest and the Gulf Coast. If a 25% tariff hits, Ottawa does not have to panic. They have an asymmetric option. Canada can strategically redirect those barrels to eager allies in the Indo-Pacific. If that happens, the U.S. supply chain fractures immediately. Prices at American gas pumps would surge overnight. Transport costs for U.S. businesses would skyrocket. This would feed instant inflation directly into the American economy. But oil is not even the biggest vulnerability. Look closely at what happens to the power grid. New England and New York rely heavily on Canadian electricity. Millions of American homes are powered by Canadian hydro. If Washington applies maximum economic pressure, Ottawa has a legal option. They can prioritize their own domestic energy security. That means less power flowing south. The economic fallout for U.S. manufacturing would be immediate. It would be severe. Factories cannot run on political rhetoric. They run on power. But how exactly is Carney preparing for this scenario? He is mapping out alternative global markets. He is securing tech deals with Japan and Europe. Canada is making sure it does not rely solely on a chaotic U.S. market. But if you think securing Japanese tech and adjusting energy flows is a massive counter-move, stick around. Because the economic option Carney is holding in reserve completely rewires the North American supply chain. And Washington will not see it coming. But the real economic weapon is not oil. It is minerals. The modern world runs entirely on rare earth elements. High-performance electric vehicles require them. Advanced artificial intelligence semiconductors require them. Billion-dollar military defense systems require them. Right now, the United States is desperate to build an independent supply chain. They want to permanently shift away from overseas rivals in Asia. And the only viable massive source right next door is Canada. Ottawa controls vast deposits of lithium, cobalt, nickel, and graphite. Washington is desperate for these exact materials. Without them, Detroit cannot compete. Without them, Silicon Valley stops running. If the U.S. applies a 25% tariff, Canada has a quiet, powerful option. Ottawa can prioritize exporting these multi-billion-dollar reserves to Japan, South Korea, and the European Union, and the consequences for the U.S. would be staggering. Without Canadian minerals, U.S. automakers face a massive production bottleneck. They would lose the global electric vehicle race before it even begins. But the biggest shock is still to come. Look at the U.S. nuclear energy sector. The United States operates the largest fleet of nuclear reactors in the world, but they do not mine enough of their own uranium. Canada is their top, most reliable supplier. Over 20% of the raw uranium used in U.S. commercial reactors comes directly from Canadian mines. If trade relations break down, Ottawa can pivot its uranium exports to new partners. If they do, the U.S. grid faces an unprecedented crisis. You cannot run a superpower without power. So, who really holds the ultimate leverage? Washington relies on loud declarations. They rely on sudden tariff threats. It is a highly reactive strategy. But Ottawa is playing a completely different game. Carney is quietly building an economic fortress. He is securing the Indo-Pacific trade bridge. He is maintaining control over the resources America needs most. By doing this, Canada is neutralizing the tariff threat. Washington might have the larger economy, but Ottawa controls the physical resources that keep that economy running. If Trump raises tariffs again, he risks triggering a supply chain nightmare for his own country. It is not about who speaks the loudest. It is about who holds the keys. If you want the sharpest objective analysis of the geopolitical shifts shaping Canada's future, you need to subscribe to Canada SR. We break down the trade deals, the policy shifts, and the real impact of every strategic move. Turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Is Canada's strategy of global diversification enough to bypass the impact of U.S. tariffs, or does Washington still hold the ultimate leverage? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.